Hello and welcome, fellow Marvel fans, to the Snark Industries podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Remy.
And we invite you to join us as we work our way through every Marvel TV show, movie, and crossover, meaning if there's a Marvel character on screen, it's fair game. All categorized in the temporal order of their setting. By the time we're done, we'll have built a complete start-to-finish timeline of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. To accomplish this goal and to have a bit of fun along the way, each episode will be split into two parts, the Watch Party and the Deep Dive. If you're hearing this, you found one of our deep dives. This is where we slow things down and take a more pragmatic, in-depth look at a piece of Marvel media. We'll walk through the full plot, explore connections to the wider MCU and Marvel Comics, highlight Easter eggs, unpack lore, and of course, give you our own personal thoughts and feelings. Although this episode stands on its own, it is designed to complement the Watch Party. So, if you haven't watched along with us yet, we highly recommend starting there first and coming back here for the full breakdown. Most importantly, we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on this incredible journey. We're not affiliated with Marvel in any way, shape, or form. We're just fans who are passionate about these stories and these characters and wish to share them with everyone in a new and exciting way. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Snark Industries.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the deep dive of Snark Industries. We just got through watching What If Hela Found the 10 Rings, which is Season 2, Episode 7 of the What If series. John, take it away with the synopsis.
And just as we kind of get into this, a reminder to everyone who's listening in order of release. We do this because we are doing everything in temporal order of the MCU itself.
Yes.
As I know, it may seem like a weird jump to go from Wakanda episode 2 to season 2 of What If, but there is a reason for it. And I think it's a good reason, because when you have this all together, you can go down this in order of when things happen in the MCU in general, which we're kind of marrying together here. And they have done as well. So, just a little side note.
Yeah, which has been a ton of fun so far.
Absolutely.
No, it's great.
So 3 episodes in, and it feels good. And it definitely, I think it fits. And I don't feel whiplash at all from this. But anyway, so yeah, just, a real quick breakdown of the episode for those who didn't join us for the watch party or for those that did. We have an episode where basically, instead of Odin banishing Hela to hell as she was being a naughty child, he instead sent her to Midgard in this ancient Chinese setting. I believe, Remy, correct my math here. I believe you said around 700 CE or AD, depending on who you subscribe to.
667.
Okay, so yeah, roundabouts in there. So this ancient Chinese culture, and we immediately get a look at 10 rings being there, and where the namesake comes from. What if Hela found the 10 rings? And Hela, in a very parallel scene and breakdown that happened in the first Thor movie, which we will get to eventually. But Odin strips her of her power. He banishes her to Earth. He, whispers into her helmet, "Whoever be worthy shall possess the power of Hela," and tosses it back in the hole as well. And, we have a very real parallel here of her trying to find her way. She gets here and immediately kind of, being Hela, wants to take over, tries to fight everyone, realizes ultimately that without her powers, she is not useless, but certainly not useful in the sense of the greater scheme of things. And we have her sort of having this growth journey as she meets different people, not only there within the area itself, Talo, which is where she's at and where she kind of meets, which is referenced in the Shang-Chi movie as well. A lot of pull-ins from different areas here, but learns a little bit about herself, a little bit about ultimately what she says is peace. And it turns out that in doing so and going to this sort of mystical safe haven of Talo, Heimdall loses sight of her, takes this to Odin, who sees the 10 rings and everything that's happened as a sort of threat to all of the 9 realms and brings an army down to take them. And ultimately, her and Odin clash at the end, and she rises victorious, sort of ascending into this white version of herself. Her clothes change and everything else. I believe we made some Gandalf references there in the watch party.
Oh, absolutely.
But, she has all these things and sort of ascends to this new level, takes over effectively the throne, sort of merges, it seems, long-term Asgard and Talo together. And her and everyone else sort of go and protect the cosmos in that sense. And they even show a scene where, she shows up riding Fenris Wolf, and everyone else is there with her as well, going and stopping Thanos as he's there on the planet with Child Gamora, giving her the perfectly balanced dagger that has been the focus of a lot of memes since then. But ultimately, that's kind of where it comes to an end is, what if she finds the 10 rings? And ultimately the 10 rings, she finds a person who's
still attached.
Still attached, which honestly, and I hadn't seen this episode before here, but wasn't what I expected going in. I thought that she was going to use and command the 10 rings, but instead she did not. But yeah, so that's the kind of breakdown of the What If Hela Found the 10 Rings episode. And now I think we're going to move on to our sort of tie-ins section. In the MCU in general, like I said, there's a lot of parallels drawn in. Obviously, the what ifs only tie in loosely to the MCU in general because they don't really happen. They're all sort of by design of what if this happened, but it didn't. But still, we can see tie-ins and we can see how everything kind of comes together. And as I mentioned in the synopsis, we have the parallels between this episode and the first Thor movie where, it's this rebellious child that needs to learn ultimately her true place in the universe kind of thing. We see not only the parallels of her being cast to Earth, we see the parallels of she wields Mjolnir in this episode, which I thought was kind of a strange choice, but it is there. And then Odin destroys Mjolnir there in the same exact way that she destroyed Mjolnir when Thor threw it at her. She threw it at Odin.
Yeah.
All of that kind of happened.
I did have curiosities of that because we do not know when Mjolnir was crafted. Do we? Do we have a date on that? Because it would make sense for her to wield that prior to Thor's birth.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, I suppose like a lot of things, when you get to something like this, it'll depend on the writer and the run in the comic series of when it was actually done. I've always kind of assumed that it was sort of crafted for Thor specifically.
Yeah, me too.
But, maybe they were going a different direction here. Not a problem if they were. Because
of course, it's
if you not even just what if, but if you zoom out on the scope of all of these comic book stories, movies, TV shows, and everything else, there are differences and continuity issues abounds because there are different writers, different runs, different arcs that they take. Absolutely. So that to me, that's not super problematic as long as we understand that there are, ultimately a lot of different universe designations and a lot of different story arcs within the same universes that maybe don't. One begets the other sort of thing.
Yeah. And speaking of universe designations, while we're passing by it, this one is currently designated as Earth TRN 1092, in case you were curious.
How about that?
Carry on.
Yeah. Get that tattooed somewhere.
There you go.
Yeah. So we see these parallels. And then, of course, we have the parallels once she gets to Earth between this and between Shang-Chi. We see a lot of the same locations and everything else. We see the 10 rings. We see the
critter without a face, or
the critter without a face. Yeah,
they got a lot of mileage on those jokes.
Whichever one you want to call it. The lucky dragon. We see all of these things sort of tied in. Yeah, so I believe the tie-ins are just sort of homage to other things that are happening. Obviously, it intentionally set itself with its own universe designation here so that it could exist outside of the constraints of the sacred timeline. Yeah. But ultimately, we knew that because this is a what if episode and doesn't have any real bearing outside of just entertainment. And so we'll get to that portion in a minute. But first, Remy, let's go through how these tie into
comic book roots.
Comic books.
Yeah. So what I picked up on was, of course, Hela. We're to start there. Her first appearance was in Journey into Mystery number 102 in 1964. So that is Hela's intro. And the Flame Blades powers, that was introduced in Jason Aaron's era, which was 2012 to 2014. So we got to see a little bit of that. And then, of course, we have the 10 rings, which has been modified by the MCU to where Xu Wenwu is in command of them. So the 10 rings, of course, as we know, is originally attributed to the Mandarin. That is a bit of a problematic character these days. So when the MCU introduced the 10 rings, of course, they side-skirted it in Iron Man, and then they gave the official designation to this character. So that's kind of the roundabout connection to the comics that we have. Those are the only 3 that I really found. Of course, we've got Fenrir and all that jazz, but those are the three stories that I really found solid ground for.
Yeah, I mean, and interesting definitely to see always how these things evolve over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hela being first introduced 60 years ago, before either of our times, and everything else. It's definitely pretty cool. And you did say something, I kind of actually want to touch on this a little bit. I'm sure we'll do more of a deep dive on this when we get to it in Iron Man 3 and in Shang-Chi. Yeah. Brace yourself. We're going to get there, Remy, and you're going to have to enjoy it.
But I'll watch it.
yeah. But the idea of the Mandarin, I definitely, you touched on it. I definitely just want to talk about that just for a second here, as this was tied in here, because the 10 rings, obviously, for anyone who's been around for a long time and really knows these stories, we're definitely changed significantly. Not even just taking them from the Mandarin, who agreed, problematic character, a bit of a caricature, definitely a little heavy on the racism, I believe, in today's climate.
A little bit.
and they just sort of did a lot of major changes, not only to the character itself, which we have with the Ben Kingsley rendition later on, but also the rings of power themselves are quite a bit different. When before they were kind of actual legitimate rings, and now they're, to go back to our episode 1 talks, bangles. So it's definitely interesting. I think it's probably overall a good change. I wish some things had been done differently, especially for such a big prominent character as the Mandarin. But I understand why you would want to distance yourself from such things. So that's all I wanted to really say about that, unless you have something to add.
No, and to the MCU's credit, because the Mandarin is such a problematic character and very heavily rooted in a caricature and racism and all that jazz, I'm not mad that they softened it. I don't love the way they approached it. However, I don't know if you've seen Wonder Man yet, but they did expand upon Trevor's character, and they kind of made it a little bit more acceptable. They probably should have done it earlier, because I've hated Iron Man 3 for a decade or more at this point.
I've got a few reasons to dislike that movie, but we'll get there when we get there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we certainly will. But nevertheless, I do like that they did give him a bit more stability in the MCU as a whole, in both Shang-Chi and now Wonder Man. So it's a little bit more acceptable as time goes on, but the jarring change that they forced back when Iron Man 3 came out was really difficult to deal with. I did not love it at all.
Yeah, agreed.
But moving on from that, this is normally where we would talk about Easter eggs, but with a What If episode, I mean, it's all Easter egg. An homage to a story. Exactly. It is an Easter egg. Yeah. So we're obviously not going to go through all that, but let's go with your thoughts. How do you like it?
I will quickly touch before we get to that. There was one thing that I did want to mention that I don't think is canon, and you can correct me if I'm misremembering or just flat out wrong. But when Hela says, "My dad's new girlfriend, Frigga,"
yeah,
which definitely implies, I mean, you wouldn't talk about your own mother that way. Implies that
no, certainly
from
not.
this perspective, Thor is only Hela's half brother.
Yeah, which is an interesting change, and I don't know if it's a change. I'm with you. I'm not entirely sure if that's a canon change.
I've always understood that they were actually legitimately siblings, but like I said, there's so many stories, there's so many arcs.
Yeah,
this could have been touched on before, or this could be something new here. Let us know in the comments, kind of thing. Like if we're totally off base here, but I thought it was interesting, nevertheless. So. All right.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Moving on. Do we like it? Do we not like it? Now, I'm going to be a little bit jaded going into this, and and I'll say it here, as this is the first one, and we have 3 seasons of this to go through. I do not like the What If series. And it's not because that I think that they're poorly made. It's not because that I, think that they're stories that don't need to be told. I don't like things that don't have stakes. I don't like things that where stories don't mean anything. And that's what these ultimately, at the end of the day, are. They're interesting stories, but they exist outside of the canon, so to speak. They don't add anything to the overall plot line.
Mm-hmm.
They're just little fun snippets, and I can appreciate that something is well done. And I think this episode specifically was well done. I don't like it for those reasons. To get into the little details, having Hela wield Mjolnir, whether or not that was something that happened before, I didn't particularly like it. Having her sort of being able to take gun gear from Odin and then somehow just wield his power.
Yeah.
Strange, very, very strange kind of thing. So, an interesting story. Cool to see her sort of rise above being a villain and be ultimately a hero of sorts in this case. Mm-hmm. Though there definitely seem to be some touches of imperialism and stuff like that at the end, which I don't know. Yeah, we built a cosmic empire and we're taking care of everybody. Yeah, that doesn't sound like every dictator ever. But
for the greater good, damn it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so interesting to see that. Like I said, I mean, it was a fun story, but ultimately one that I personally don't like. And now for an entirely different take, to you, Remy.
Well, we were talking before we watched this episode how in the last episode we spoke about how John doesn't like the no stakes stories and inserting characters in stories that already exist for no reason. I'm on the exact opposite end. You never had any What If comics. I had a whole stack of them. I loved them. I thought they were fascinating. So when this show came around, I was all excited. Some of the episodes do not hit. There are some big piles of junk in there, but there are episodes like this that really stand out as well-told stories. And I love the opportunity to see what a character could have been, what a small twist in the story can do to the overall outcome of the universe when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I've always really enjoyed the What If stories. Like I had one that was, what if the War Machine had never defeated the living laser? And it was the weirdest, most bizarre story, but I found it fascinating. It's like, this is the kind of stuff I love about Marvel, is because they can take these very simple concepts and just change one little detail and just, here's a whole different universe that you're never going to hear the full story for, but here's just one little drop on the bucket. And I find that so much fun. So that's what I thought of it. I thought this episode was absolutely fantastic. One of the better What If episodes, in my opinion.
There you go. Hot takes for both of us. Maybe, maybe not.
Hot takes.
But good breakdown, as always.
Yeah,
and
likewise,
to everyone listening, we appreciate you, as always.
Yes, we do.
I'm John. That's Remy. Thank you for listening to Snark Industries, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Snark Industries podcast. To join the conversation and further explore the Marvel Cinematic Universe with us, head on over to snarkindustriespod.com. The link will be in the show notes. But with that, we will see you in the next adventure.
Bam, 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 bam.